You're listening to Night Watch Radio. I'm your host, Jacob Reese. Tonight, we journey down a road that many wish didn't exist, a highway etched into the darkest corners of forgotten lore, Route 666. This isn't just a story passed down. This is an account from a man who lived through it, a terrifying glimpse into what lies beyond our understanding. His name is Michael Thorne, and until that night, he believed only in what he could see. He learned the hard way that some realities exist only to unravel your own. It was late November, the kind of cold that seemed to seep into your bones, around 1:15 a.m. Michael was on a long drive, delivering a special load that needed to arrive fast. He'd been awake for 18 hours, kept going by coffee and sheer willpower. He decided to take a shortcut through a stretch of road his GPS simply showed as blank space. The road was narrow, barely 2 lanes, and a thick mist rolled in from the ancient forests, clinging to the mountains. His old semi-truck, the Iron Giant, groaned under its weight, its engine a lonely hum against the vast silence. Every mile felt like he was driving deeper into a chilling darkness. That's when he saw her, standing by the side of the road, a single figure against the swirling white fog. His first thought was that the mist was playing tricks, making him see things. But as his bright headlights cut through the gloom, she became clear. A girl, impossibly young, maybe 17 or 18. She wore what looked like a ragged, once white prom dress, now gray and completely soaked, clinging to her thin body. Her long black hair was plastered to her face, hiding everything but the pale curve of her cheek and the faint gleam of her eyes. She stood perfectly still, barefoot on the freezing gravel, her posture unnaturally stiff. Every part of Michael screamed at him to keep driving, to speed past, but something deep inside, an instinct he couldn't explain, made his foot lift from the gas pedal. He slowed, his air brakes hissing a loud sigh into the silent night. He pulled the massive truck over, the cabin lights casting a weak yellow glow into the heavy fog. As he reached for the passenger window, the warmth inside his cab, a safe haven from the bitter cold, was instantly invaded. A wave of chilling, damp air washed over him. With it came a smell. It wasn't the clean smell of mountain rain, but something heavy, sickeningly sweet, like a grave freshly dug after a summer storm, with wet earth mixing with the overpowering scent of rotting lilies. It made his stomach churn, a smell of decay mixed with something too beautiful, too innocent. He forced himself to roll down the window. The cold, wet air blasted in, bringing that sickly perfume. And then, as the girl stepped closer, her shape unclear in the swirling mist, 3 things happened. Each one hit Michael's common sense, like a hammer. That strong smell of wet earth and rotting lilies got even stronger, suffocating him, tasting like something unholy on his tongue. His CB radio, which had been buzzing with a low, comforting static, suddenly went dead. Every channel, every whisper of noise, vanished into an absolute deep silence. The truck, moments before a roaring machine, became a quiet tomb, broken only by the faint ticking of the cooling engine. And then, she spoke. Her face remained utterly still, her lips not moving, as if she were a puppet. Her voice, however, was chillingly clear, a soft whisper that cut through the silence with an unnatural sound. "Can you take me home? It's so cold out here and I need to get home before he wakes up." The words were simple, but the way they echoed in the deep quiet, and her unmoving lips, sent a raw, primal shiver down Michael's spine. He felt a creeping dread, a sure feeling that this was no ordinary person. Yet, feeling forced by something he couldn't fight, he reached for the door lock, which clicked with a frightening finality. He watched, unable to look away, as she climbed into the passenger seat. She didn't open the door wide, just slipped through the space he provided, as if she were more mist than a person. She sat down, completely silent, perfectly still. Water immediately began to pool on the worn vinyl seat, making a dark, spreading stain. She stared straight ahead, her face still hidden by her dark, dripping hair, watching the twin beams of his headlights pierce the endless fog. Michael tried to speak, to ask her name, where home was, anything to break the suffocating quiet. But his throat felt suddenly tight, his voice trapped. He swallowed hard, his eyes darting to the rearview mirror, then back to her. She never fidgeted, never moved around, just sat there, an unnaturally still passenger. Then he noticed a small, unsettling detail. Her left hand was tightly clutching her right wrist, almost like she was protecting it, and in the dim glow of the dash lights, as the truck bounced slightly over a rough patch in the road, he thought he saw faint, dark finger marks bruising the pale skin under her grasp. They were small, almost like a child's handprints, but chillingly clear. As they drove deeper into the winding, unlit roads, the profound cold that had entered the cab grew stronger. Michael could see his own breath misting in the air, even with the heater blowing warm air. His old radio, which had been completely silent, suddenly crackled to life, not with static, but with a faint, ghostly tune. It was a child's lullaby, distorted and slow, sounding like it came from a warped music box. The air grew thicker, heavier, not just with mist, but with a new smell joining the lilies. Something sharp, metallic, like old, dried blood. Michael's grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles were white. He tried to change the radio station, but the dial wouldn't move. The lullaby played on, a haunting, endless loop. He glanced at the girl again. She was swaying, barely moving, with the strange melody, water still dripping from her dress onto the floor mat, forming a small, cold puddle at her feet. Her stillness was unsettling, yet there was a tension in her slight sway, as if an invisible force was guiding her. The truck's engine began to sputter, the dash lights flickering in time with the distorted music. Michael felt a strong urge to stop, to make her leave, to run, but his foot felt stuck to the gas pedal, his hands locked on the wheel. It was as if the truck, and he along with it, were no longer under his control. After what felt like forever, but was likely only a few minutes, the girl finally spoke again. Her head remained completely still, but her long, slender finger slowly lifted and pointed to the right. "Here," she whispered, her voice like ice-cold wind chimes. Michael squinted through the swirling mist. There was nothing there, just a thick wall of dense woods, old trees twisted into strange shapes. No turn-off, no driveway, no sign of any houses. "There's nothing here," Michael said. His voice a choked whisper, barely heard over the phantom lullaby. "This is just forest." The girl slowly turned her head towards him then, her hair shifting just enough. Her eyes, which had been hidden, were now visible. They were black, completely empty of light or reflection, like staring into bottomless wells. And in that moment, he understood with a sickening certainty. He wasn't driving a living person home. He was driving a memory, a terror, to its unending resting place. Before Michael could scream, before he could even grasp the pure horror in those black eyes, the truck suddenly lurched. The whole cabin shook violently, as if hit by an invisible force. Michael's head snapped back, then slammed forward, hitting the steering wheel hard. Pain exploded behind his eyes, and for a dizzying moment, the world spun into a blur of light and shadow, the lullaby swelling to an agonizing shriek. When he finally got his breath back, gasping, the truck was still. The engine was off, the radio was silent, the air was still damp and cold, but that heavy, clinging presence was gone. Michael's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He fumbled for the dash lights, his hands shaking so much he could barely press the button. He turned to the passenger seat. It was empty. Chewy. No girl, no water pooling, Just a large, dark, unsettlingly clear wet stain on the seat and a faint, lingering smell of lilies and damp earth. The silence after the girl's departure was more terrifying than any scream. It was the silence of emptiness, a place where something had been, and now was utterly, completely gone. Michael Thorne didn't wait. He didn't check the map, didn't try to understand. He started the truck, the engine roaring to life with a loud, comforting sound that for a moment pushed back the growing madness. He turned the wheel sharply, made a rough U-turn on the narrow road, and sped away, the tires spitting gravel. He didn't stop until the sun was a painful, bright glare in his rearview mirror, and he was miles, hundreds of miles from that cursed road. Days later, still shaken, haunted by phantom smells and silent voices, Michael forced himself to clean his truck. He couldn't bear to look at the passenger seat. As he scrubbed at the stubborn wet stain, he felt something hard underneath. Stuck to the floor mat, exactly where the water had pooled, he found it. A small, tarnished silver locket. It was open. Inside, on a faded, tiny photograph, was a young girl with bright, smiling eyes. On the back, faintly etched, barely readable, were two simple, devastating words. Lost, 1953. A name wasn't needed. The face was enough. The chilling truth, the impossible reality hit him with the force of a physical blow. The girl from Route 666, the one who rode in his cab, was not just a ghost. She was a tragic, unresolved echo, a piece of a nightmare that had escaped its proper time. Michael Thorne never drove Route 666 again. He sold the Iron Giant a week later, taking a big loss, just needing it gone from his life. He changed his trucking routes, quit long-haul driving, and now works a quiet, local delivery job. But sometimes late at night, when his house is still and the wind howls, he still catches a faint, phantom scent of lilies and damp earth. Sometimes he hears a distant, distorted child's lullaby, playing just at the edge of his hearing. And he knows. He knows that some rides are not just friendly favors. Some offers of a lift are simply invitations. And once you accept, you become part of the road's dark history, a potential replacement in an unending, horrifying search. This has been Jacob Reese on Night Watch Radio. If you're ever on a lonely road late at night, and you see someone by the side of the highway, just keep driving. Don't stop. Not for anything that looks human, especially on Route 666. Sweet dreams, listeners. If you're lucky enough to have them.